So we will begin with Nikolai Gogol's wonderful story, The Nose. Have we talked about the nose at all? It's about this guy who wakes up and he is having breakfast with his wife. He would like to have coffee and bread, but he knows that his wife frowns on such foolishness. So he says, well, okay, I'll just have the bread. And the woman thinks, well, I'll have some more coffee for myself. That's all pretty good. And he slices into the loaf of bread and pulls out a nose. And he tries to deal with it. Meanwhile, later on in St. Petersburg, Russia, a guy wakes up, looks in the mirror, looks in the mirror, no nose. So it's the story of a man and a nose. Yes?
Is it bad that I would still eat that bread with the nose bad in it? Because I'm really hungry right now.
Is what?
Is it bad that I would still eat the bread with the nose in it?
He probably does, but his immediate problem is to get rid of the nose. You see, he's a barber, and his wife is really not very appreciative of him because, like all barbers, he's a terrible drunkard. And she starts accusing him of chopping the nose off. She starts accusing him, like, I'm not going to jail because I'm married to a nose chopper. She may even start to beat him. I don't even remember. So all he can think of is, man, I got to ditch this nose somewhere. So he's walking around the streets of St. Petersburg, Russia with a nose in his, and he's trying to, ditch it, but every time he tries to drop it, somebody says, oh, you dropped this thing, this item wrapped in a napkin. And then he finally thinks he's going to drop it off of a bridge and he runs into a cop. How's that? What? Exactly. What other questions do you have for me today? Sammy?
Oh, I read that earlier, and I couldn't understand why she was blabbering at him about having the nose in the bread when she just baked the bread.
Which brings up the question, how did the nose get into the bread? And later on, we're pretty sure that it was the nose of Major Kovalyov that got in that bread. Major Kovalyov has no idea what happened to his nose. Well, imagine yourself walking down the street and you see your nose dressed up in the uniform of a state counselor praying in a church. And then you run up to the nose and you start trying to say, look, you're my nose. And the nose looks at you and says, I don't know what on earth you're talking about.
So that's how Voldemort came about.
All I'm telling you is there are all sorts of great questions that you could ask based on the nose, and that's part of your assignment. Ask me questions about the nose and I will tell you, beats me. Okay? All right, ladies. Okay, what do you got there? What do you got there? Janelle, what do you got there? Ryan, what do you got? Oh, you got your purse. Ryan, what did you bring?
Smashers.
What's a Smashers? Is it good?
It is delicious. Would you like some?
Camille?
His glass of his nose a metaphor for castration.
Yes. Any other questions? Yes.
Like she really smart and thinks that this is for us.
I don't want to risk disrespecting somebody who raises her hand and asks questions about castration. Okay, anything else I can answer? All right, here's the plan. Yeah, Sammy.
Is there some other significance or symbolism for the pimple on the nose?
On the pimple on the nose?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Are you going to share that with the class?
Probably not. Probably demand that you come up with your own explanations, which may be better than mine. And in a pinch, we'll ask Camille. Okay? What is your major, Camille?
Hospitality management.
I thought for sure you were going to turn out to be like a psychiatric major or something like that. No. It still lives. You get back. We'll talk about that afterwards, okay? Antiquities never went away. All right. I'm going to talk to you today, actually, about something serious, and I'm going to ask for your input, okay? It's something that you can really help me with, and let me remind you, I haven't even looked at your tests. today I'm going to, now that I have loosened you all up and all that stuff, I really am going to ask seriously for your help in helping me explain the purpose, the thought behind the Catabatic story, the Catabatic narrative or book review or whatever that you turn in along with your final examination. Ideally, Sam, this will not be the sort of thing you say, oh, Sturkis, about, because the idea is that rather than write a learned term paper about how I think the pimple on the nose of Major Kovalyov stands for a venereal disease engulfed by nasal sex. So to speak. You bring out the worst in me, kids. You bring out the worst in me. You're just saying that because you haven't taken the test yet. This is going to be taped, and it's going to be shown to students who do not have the joy of interacting with the deluxe years truly on a regular basis. So that when they are trying to get some guidance on how they ought to complete their Catabatic project, they're going to be scuffling, and I'm not going to be there to, tell them bad jokes and sexual innuendos to help them along. So I'm going to say that it's basically going to be a retelling of something that did happen to you. Okay, that's one way of doing it. A story about something that did happen to you, which, on the basis of all the wonderful fine things you've learned in this class, can be construed as a catabasis. Okay? And it's not just went to the hospital one day, went to the basement, saw somebody really old, thought to myself, I'm going to be really old, and then the nurse came and led me away. And I walked back up the steps and I thought, whoa, someday I'm going to be really old, but I'm not really old now. Ha 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 ha. Walked out. That's not good enough, okay? Huh?
That was my paper.
Well, you're gonna wait, if you want, I'll tell you what. You write that on your paper, I promise to give you no lower of a grade than D. If you want to do a C job or a B job or even an A job on the paper, you're going to have to relate it. You're going to have to relate it to the experiences, to the concerns that we have experienced in the cases of our glorious heroes, Gilgamesh, Odysseus, Aeneas, Dante. You're going to have to put yourself in their shoes, kind of, or of our heroes like Major Kovalyov, or of Dorothy. Yes, that's who I would be. Or the heroes of Kurt Vonnegut's award-winning novel, Breakfast of Champions. The idea is that you relate this literary experience, this literary motif, to your actual, real, live life. Okay? It can also be fictional. That is to say, you can make something up about a character. Oh heck, you can make it up about a fictional character who actually already exists. Or you can make up somebody like the dashing, handsome college professor with a slightly receding hairline. Yes, Jackson?
So we could take a character from a book that we've read
Mm-hmm.
and relate it.
Or you could also take a character from a book you have read, dang it, and just plain explain it. It doesn't necessarily have to be a piece of creative fiction. Janet, you're just foofing your hair again. If you want to, you can explain somebody's experiences in a novel, like I think Harry Potter went on a catabasis.
What?
Imagine that. Huh?
His whole life was a catabasis.
Well, you know what, Lay? Life really is a catabasis. But you just need to break off a 5 pages, double-spaced experience about somebody's catabasis, okay? It can be something lengthy that happened in your life, like your first year of college. It can be the weekend from hell. It could be the date from hell. It could be probably, really, gotta say, the worst real experience of my life, which I think I discussed on that YouTube lecture way back in the day. I mean, just horrible. Just gut-wrenching, awful. It can be funny, or it can be not funny, okay? It's completely open. And what I would like to ask the class is, can you think of anything, or would you be willing to share some experience? I'll start off because I've got a good one, of something that could be interpreted as a catabatic experience. Many, many years ago, when I was a graduate student, there was this dude who was the head of the department. His name was Erling B. Holtzmark. He preferred to be called Jack because his name was Erling. If your name was Erling, wouldn't you prefer to be called Jack? No. Oh, good God, no. No, he was not an Earl. He was Swedish. He got this name because he was Swedish and his parents were Swedish. And so, and honest to God, this guy's whole life was a catabasis. He would sit in his office with the lights out and the shades pulled. And he talked like this, and he always wore black. Honest to God, he was just like one big, huge, and he was fixated on catabasis. Everything was a catabasis. A bump in the road was a catabasis. I thought, oh my God, this guy needs to get a life. What the hell is wrong with him?
And why didn't he just go for Johnny, like Johnny Cash and Man of Black? And,
Because he's Swedish. Could you imagine a Swedish Johnny Cash imitator? He fell into a burning the fire. No, not going to happen. So anyway, I wound up with this guy as my thesis director because I knew that he was going to, and he told me, he said, yeah, I'll be happy to be your thesis director. You write me 1 page a day for 365 days. You'll have 365 pages of stuff for a dissertation. 2/3 of them will be poop, but you will have 120 pages of something good that, will be a good, and if you don't finish up, I will kill you. And this was everything I wanted in a thesis advisor, all right? So anyway, a thesis advisor really is kind of like your mom or dad for your dissertation. So for what it's worth, poor Jack, he's still alive, is my dad. In 1995, I was going up to Iowa City. This was 8 years after my dissertation was completed, and I thought, I'll go visit my old professor, Jack. Well, I find out he's not in his office having a catabasis. He's in the hospital in Iowa City, not the university hospital. It's like Mercy or, I don't know, some hospital like Holy Cross Mercy or Holy something. And honest to God, I decide I'm going to go see him. He's had a bleeding ulcer. Any of you ever have a bleeding ulcer? Any of you ever cause a bleeding ulcer? I probably have, but not this one. I find out that his room is in the basement. And the reason why I point this out is, how many of you have ever gotten into a hospital and think, ugh? Okay, the rest of you just like walk into hospital and say, I'm in the hospital. Tony, what do you think when you walk into a hospital? Okay, good, we're surfacing these feelings. Okay, you think about who's death? Death? Pardon? This was the friend that you lost? And you can't go, I drive by St. John's Hospital, and I know. And you just think of all the people who in there who are hopefully being treated, and you hope they get better. It's chilling. How many of you have been lost in a hospital? Why is it? Why do you get lost in hospitals? The correct answer is unfamiliar territory and architectural idiots, because every hospital starts out like this. And then they build on the wing. Then they build on the terrace. Then they put a happy little tree and a parking structure in here. How many of you have ever gotten so lost in a hospital that you had to be guided around by somebody? Okay. And then they take you to the place, and then you realize you have no knowledge of how to Okay, so it's like a catabasis in that regard too. I go down to look for Jack. This is me. And,
Skateboard down there?
pardon?
You skateboard down the stairs?
I was soaping. Do people still soap? Huh? Yeah, it's getting worse. I think that soaping is when you have like rollerblades in your shoes. Yeah. Okay. And I have no idea of where to find my old professor. Put that away. Put that away. It is making me unhappy. So I finally get to go into Jack's room. This nurse guides me into Jack's room. And there's Jack. Jack has gained weight. He's gained an awful lot of weight, okay? He's kind of looking pretty hefty, and I've kind of gotten kind of hefty too. And he's kind of grimacing. And I said, well, hi, Jack. That was our old joke. And how are you doing? Well, that's really intelligent. I'm having a bleeding ulcer here and stuff like that. And then I start chuckling as I said, Jack, this is just so like a catabasis, honest to God. I walked down into the hospital and thoughts of my mortality immediately started springing up because this is a hospital, and he understood. So I'm walking down the steps, and I get to this gate, and I have no idea where I'm going. So I ask, you know, at the beginning of the liminal experience, and a guide comes, this nurse comes and shows me how to get to your room. Oh, wow. He was kind of chuckling about that. And I said, well, and then, you know, typologically, Jack, that makes you the wisdom figure. He started to laugh at that one. I said, well, if you're the wisdom figure then, Jack, you know, tell me what grade you would give me on my description of your catabasis. And then he started laughing really hard. Then he said, please stop making me laugh. And when somebody tells you to stop laughing, that only makes you laugh all the harder, right? So I start telling him, oh, wait, I'm still looking for, you know, the parade of heroes. I still want to know who died so that I could go down here and come out. I still need to know. He said, stop it. So I kept him laughing. And then he just looked at me and I said, I got it, Jack. Jack, I just want you to get well. You take care of yourself. Thanks. I'll be in touch. And I ascended back into the real world, the streets of Iowa City, knowing that even a wisdom figure can get really mad at you. And I learned too, I first realized too, that by this time I was in my middle 30s, I realized that there could well come a time when I became a cranky old professor with medical conditions. And darned if it didn't happen that way. That's it. That's my catabasis. I would give that one pretty much a B because it would need some dialogue, some snappy dialogue. I mean, you get my character, but I'm not really doing Jack justice because he would just grimace a lot and talk through his teeth. Especially, and the bleeding ulcer didn't help his disposition any at all. Okay?
I honestly thought that story was going to go and he made him laugh so hard that he started bleeding and more.
That's what I was
died.
thinking.
I was like, oh my god.
That's what I was thinking. Not the died part, but, you know, there's this man, like, you.
I was making it worse. I was making it worse. He was actually in genuine pain. It was literally made him laugh so hard by these arcane catabatic references that it really was aggravating the bleeding ulcer. But like I said, I did not kill him. Nor, to his credit, did he kill me. Okay, anybody got a similar story that they could develop into a catabasis or anything that would be sort of catabatic? Anything. This is your opportunity to dazzle me. You don't have to retell it. It can just be kind of a catabasis. Taylor?
What's my catabasis?
What's your catabasis?
Meeting me is a catastrophe.
No, not really, Janelle. You can.
All my classes, I have every class that I have with Taylor. Haven't met this man. Do you know this man from a can of paint?
From who?
A can of paint.
Oh, a can of paint. Okay. No, I mean,
I see Taylor in my class.
Okay, and what have you learned in the classrooms where you have followed Taylor around? Okay, so then that means you're the guide. Taylor, what have you learned in the classes where Janelle has led you?
Good question. I'm still learning.
Yep.
But I don't know. I've had, I'm a transfer student, so I had a liminal experience when I came here.
Very good. Okay, now we're working on something. Coming to college, okay, or starting high school. Or for those of you who can remember back that far, elementary school. Can you remember elementary school?
No, I was talking about high school.
Do you remember high school?
Yeah.
What is your name?
Travis.
Okay, you're sure you're Travis, right?
Positive.
And you are? And you're Jack. Okay, I don't have the T team over here. I just have 2 of you over here. Okay, can you tell me anything about it, Travis?
I just never thought the day would actually come, and whenever I went to a high school with 65 kids in my class, so we were all close. And whenever we had graduation in the gym and just walking out of the gym, it just kind of hit me that high school was over. I don't know.
So the Catabasis was actually the real world then.
Yeah.
What high school was this?
St. Pius, a little Catholic school in St. Louis.
Okay, St. Pius, which Pius? I mean, there's a lot of Piuses. Okay, Pius the 10th. Okay, he was okay. I'm not really a big fan of Pius the 9th, and Pius the 8th. It's kind of like the Henry VIII of the Catholic Church. He was. I'm kidding. And was it kind of weird to come here to Springfield?
Yeah, kind of. It was a lot bigger than at my high school.
Okay. So Missouri State University was a lot bigger than St. Pius the 10th and 11th school and stuff like that. Did you assimilate well, do you think?
Yeah, it took me a little while though, but.
Okay, what was the big liminal experience, you would say?
I don't know, I guess just getting dropped off.
Okay. The reason why I ask is you're reminding me of my own going to the University of Iowa in Iowa City, Iowa, back in the year of our Lord 1982. I was in the year of our Lord 1982. I had just turned 21 years old. That's how old? No, 1982. I'm really, really, really old. I could probably be your grandfather and do bongs with you and stuff like that. No. I'm teasing you, and probably am not. But I remember my brother and I were driving. He was driving my friend's International Scout, driving across the bridge really early in the morning in Iowa, and it just said, "Welcome to Iowa." And that's when there was the outline of the state of Iowa. And I was just thinking, whoa, I've been living with mom and dad for 21 years. I have a college degree. I have a 4-year university fellowship guaranteed. And it just dawned on me, I'm going to be living on my own and being responsible for my own bad self. Whoa. And let me tell you, friends, what a hash I made of that. I mean, I was living in a converted garage, eating food that I myself cooked when I felt like it, when I had money left over from buying alcohol and cigarettes. Pardon? Oh no, gave that up before you were born. 87. Well, that's all right. I didn't even know how to wash clothes. I mean, all of my needs were taken care of by Mom. And Mom tried. She said, "Honey, do you want to learn how to wash clothes?" No. Who the hell wants to learn how to wash clothes, right?
You say go and wash your own clothes.
Yep.
I think girls are more supposed to like guys, because your mom made you do it.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what I wound up doing. I wound up hiring this outfit called the 8th Dwarf Army. They were called the 8th Dwarf Army, and what I would do is I would leave a basket full of dirty clothes out in front of my hellish little apartment, and then they would come and take it, and it would come back washed and folded just like Mom did it. Then I would pay them an ass load of money. Mom didn't charge. It was just a learning experience in so many ways, but I guess my point is, Travis, that I have a very vivid idea of just crossing over the Mississippi River on the I-80 bridge, saying, "Welcome to Iowa," and thinking, whoa, here it comes. And boy, did it. Anybody else have a really good liminal experience story? Yeah, go ahead, Jackson.
Just last November, my mom, I lived with my brother, my mom, and
So,
Hey, you're gonna be living with Jackson for a long time. Go ahead.
and she decided to marry and move away.
Your mom did.
Yes.
Okay.
And I was just really surprised when she actually did it.
She left you. She abandoned you. How old were you?
19.
Yeah, man.
How could she do that to you?
Mama and
In your time of need.
In your time of need and stuff like that. And then she walked out the door and you think, oh crap, she really meant it.
Yeah.
Was that a good feeling?
Not really.
Why?
I guess I just wasn't. I didn't think I was ready,
Mm-hmm.
but
I didn't think I was ready either.
in
And boy, I wasn't.
I think I've handled it pretty well.
Good. So did you compensate by drinking a lot?
No.
I did. Didn't work. Okay, what else?
My first weekend here at college.
Okay,
It was ironically enough, the first weekend was Labor Day weekend, so it was a 3-day weekend.
okay.
Everybody went home, and I didn't have a car, so I couldn't go home.
Right.
And that was basically when it hit me. I'm in college, Mama's not here, and I cried.
Fair enough. Did you call your mama?
Yeah, I called her.
Okay, and how long did you talk to her?
Talked to her for about 20 minutes.
Okay, did she give you wisdom?
She said it's gonna be okay, you'll see me in Thanksgiving.
Fair enough. Okay, and well, what was weird about coming here?
Mostly it was because it was so far and I was in a different state. So it was, even though it was like a 4-hour drive, even I never wished more for a car and a driver's license than for that first weekend, because everybody went home and
There you were. Have anybody else here ever been abandoned by all their suite mates and dorm mates, and you're just sitting there holding the bag, going like?
I enjoy it.
You eventually get to enjoy it, but boy, have I heard people complain about it. What's another really bizarre experience, a catabatic experience? Janelle?
Going from a historically black university to a predominantly white university.
Yes, because I try to envision myself doing the opposite. And I mean, honestly, it's hard not to, I like to think, I'm a really cool equal opportunity. I'd be freaked. What was it like? When did it really come home to you that you were?
My first weekend down here, like the way the dorms were compared to the university I was at before, because at the university I was at before, it was like the dorms were like apartments. Like you only shared your bathroom with one person.
Right,
When I stayed at Hammer's house, I shared my bathroom with 4 people.
And they're all women.
Yes.
mostly.
Okay, go ahead.
And it was just weird because everyone was so, I guess like the AGC was so small, and it's like the classes were like 20 people, 25 people. And then when I first started, when I was taking BMS 110, and that class had like 125 people in, and you had to fight to get a good sheet.
Okay, how many of you, just to pause there, have had that experience? You're in high school where the classes are basically 25 people. I'm talking about high school here, right? I remember very vividly my first massive lecture hall stuffed to the gills with all sorts of people. Little bitty professor down there, writing up on the wall, 300 miles an hour and stuff like that. And thinking, how am I going to handle this? I mean, I was really freaked. That really freaked. I'm not leaving out all the other culture shock of moving from one university to another. It was just this great, big, huge lecture hall. And a guy who was walking around with a cigarette in his mouth, because this was 1978. Good morning, he said. Welcome to a rainy Monday. I love her. Pardon? I didn't know either because I was up in the nosebleed seats, and he was talking with a cigarette in his mouth. And because he could, and he was about this high, and I could see that he was wearing a tight shirt and these absurdly tight leather pants that shined, or shone, or something. And he said, and I quote, "I love a rainy Monday morning. Makes me feel like I'm in effing Iowa." And,
Where he was located?
no, this is Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I went to grad school in Iowa. Good question, though, and I'm thinking, wow, did he just take a hit off a cigarette and, doing a, drop an F-bomb? And I thought, maybe I'll be okay at this place. And actually, the professor, Jack McGovern, I took a couple of other classes for him. He called me fondly by name, something I don't want to repeat because I don't like being called that. Not until you deserve it. My point is that that was my signal that it was going to be all right. I feel like I'm in effing Iowa, okay? And what's sad is I did go to Iowa. That was good, actually. So I wound up in effing Iowa going to graduate school, and Jack died of a brain tumor in his 50s. I mean, and I can't help but think now that I'm in my 50s or my 60s, thinking, man, he must be like the dead person. I mean, he must be like the one who died, because he had so much to live for. He was so awesome. He would corner students in the union, and if he found you, let's break bread. And he would drag you off to eat, and he'd pay. And he wouldn't talk. He would demand that you tell him why you wanted to go to college and what your dreams were. You know, this is somebody I kind of wanted to grow up to be, but couldn't. So I remember the lecture hall. What are some other college type things?
The dorm.
Never lived in the dorms, can't help you. Are the dorms scary?
It depends on which one you stay in.
I mean, how many of you live in the dorms? How many of you did live in the dorms, but got the heck out of the dorms as soon as you could? How many of you were actually sort of okay with living in the dorms? My wife was okay with living in the dorms. She lived in the dorms when she was in graduate school. No, she never did successfully explain that to me. But here are the jokers you're going to be living with for a year. Is that the problem?
And just mostly you just don't have your own space there.
Okay, is it a catabasis though? Camille?
I love my roommate, and in fact, I'm going to live with her again next year, even though we've taken a year break from each other. It was our RA that was the problem. She was in the room right next to us, and every night around 2 or 3 in the morning, her alarm would go off for hours at a time, and she just wouldn't turn it off or wake up.
Why would she want to wake up?
This is even better. Whenever she usually talked like this, it would be like, oh, Camille! But whenever she got angry, it would get really low.
You're working on an A right there, Camille. If you can manage to carry that across, you know, make your characters come alive and stuff like that, that's really awesome. Yes, Devon.
As far as roommates go, I've actually kind of lucked out. But what? Exactly. Oh.
Yeah, we already know.
Yeah, that's my argument. Don't worry. I've looked out with roommates, but I feel like the catabasis with it is when you keep looking on your My Missouri States and be like, do I have a roommate? Do I have a roommate? They finally tell you their name, and then you email them and you're like, hey, what stupid things do you do? So it's the whole getting to know them beforehand. To email them.
Okay, how many of you have had a roommate that turned out to be completely different than advertised? I see a pattern here. My brother's roommate got religion in mid-year, so he would, and that's fine. He would have people coming in and having prayer group meetings. And my brother said, no, we had a deal. You were not going to have prayer group meetings unless I was gone at a class or something. Well, I think this room is mine, so I can have. Okay, so my brother had people come in and pray to him for good grades, get lucky, do whatever. I just thought that was so awesome. They say, oh, great Tom, would you please grant me, ask. And they eventually, split up. Not that my brother was any prize, but go ahead.
My first roommate, I thought was really cool. Me and her got along great. I taught her lots of things. You knowing me should know what I taught her. Anyway, but then later to figure out that she thought I was hitting on her the entire time. And I'm like, no, you're
So she thought she was a lesbian?
I'll explain that part. But she was like, oh, she was always hitting on me and she'd always compliment me. And I'm like, you're attractive, but I do not like you because I can tell you're a bitch. So.
Was that a catabasis? Was that a catabasis?
Yeah.
Good,
I'm
good.
friends with her on Facebook and I'm like, I know what you're doing.
Okay, can we get something from this side of the room? Any Catabasis stories from this side of the room? Go ahead, Elena.
Liminal experience, my first job. So it was my first day. I worked at a pool, and a kid came up to me and puked everywhere. And someone handed me a mop and said, "Clean it up, newbie," and that was it.
Ew.
Wow.
It was wonderful.
And you stayed? You stayed there?
Yes.
Holly.
I worked at a nursing home for 2 months of housekeeping.
My beloved wife had a one-afternoon career in the ice cream business. My beloved wife grew up with a tennis racket in her hand, which was lucky for me because she didn't start caring about boys until she was in college. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gotten to be her husband, which was still the best thing that ever happened to me. But, so, I mean, you need to know that she had a handshake just like because she played tennis. And she had 4 arms, and one arm was like one girly, skinny, girly arm, and one big, burly arm because she didn't like playing against girls because they played like girls. She played against guys because that way then she could play like a guy and kick all the other girls' butts. She was a horrible sport, too. But she got a job at this ice cream place. I have to understand my wife was just a very petite, sweet Southern belle, okay, until she became degraded by being married to me. And she was working at this ice cream joint where you have to scoop the ice cream out. It was opening day of Minnie Pearl's Ice Cream in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee. And Moopy, my beloved wife, is the only employee and the owner. Well, Moopy's not going fast enough. A line is building up. And she's getting more frustrated because my wife was not accustomed to not being able to do things that she put her mind to. And the boss is just looking at her and says, "Oh, you are such an idiot." And she walks up to Moopy, takes the scoop away from her, said, "Look, watch, this is how it's done." And I guess 16-year-old Moopy just looked at her and said, "Well, since you're the expert, enjoy." Walked out the door and left her with that. That was the end of Moopy's career in the ice cream business. And she learned in life, when she had her reverse liminal experience, I think that life is too short to work for bungholes. What else? What else? What other story? Hunter, go ahead, and then Dylan.
Austin and I took anatomy in high school. And
You took what?
Anatomy in high school.
Why?
Don't ask.
Okay.
But, so we had to go and watch an autopsy. And so we were going down through Cox and stuff. And this is like before I worked at a hospital or anything. We were expecting like the optometrist there to be a doctor and like up, just really polite and stuff. We walk in there and Dr. Norton's just kind of like this quirky guy that's really super smart but just kind of weird. And so the whole time he's like trying to make us laugh, and he's just this really strange guy. And it's our
Autopsy jokes, right? Autopsy humor is just some of the funniest stuff I've ever heard. This is the thing he got away. Go ahead.
Yeah, basically like so it was just like 2 or 3 hours of kind of awkward weirdness with like this mad scientist in the basement of Cox, and then we all got to leave and we all started talking about it.
Well, at least you didn't start crying or puking all over Elena's stuff. Dylan, what do you got?
Working at assisted living for 4 years.
Which one?
Bethesda Terrace.
Okay, my dad's in an assisted living now, and every time I get to go in there, I swear it is a catabasis because I see all of these old people and think, if I'm lucky, this is what I'm going to get to be someday. Go ahead.
Well, because sometimes they just when they're sick and you take food to their room, they'll keep you and be like, "I just want to die." That happened to me like 3 times, and you just don't know what to say when they say that one.
No, because what can you, and then you get to carry that back with you, right? Like, oh God. You see, my dad is he's 83, he's still kicking butt and taking names. I was shooting the breeze with him yesterday, and he said, well, when you talk to the people, he's a stroke patient, so the words don't come anymore except for the curse words. You say Ronald Reagan to him, he'll just start, hurling out F-bombs like you never believe, but you can't go there too often. But I had to go check on something. He said, "You'll come back, won't you?" And he says, "Thank you" to me. And I said, "Oh, for God's sake, Dad. I do this for 20 years, it's still a drop in the bucket, right?" But here I am talking with him, cheering him up, telling him, stories, like you tell old folks. And he looks at his watch and says, okay, you can go. And it's like an hour from anything he's got to do, eat dinner. He just, okay, you can go now. What does that mean? You ever hear that?
Not me personally, but one of my friends got into it with resident. They just told him.
They what?
Like some of the residents tell you to go away sometimes.
Go figure. Anybody been on a trip that's like a catabasis?
Every time I go home to Topeka on the Greyhound bus.
Any trip on a Greyhound bus is automatically a catabasis. Bethany, you got one?
Just every time I go home, it's kind of
Where's home?
Farmington, Missouri.
Okay.
It's kind of just like a warp into a different world kind of thing.
Why? I mean, I'm not arguing with you. I mean, I can't even bear to go to the town I was raised in anymore because it's just too weird.
It's just like a double life kind of thing when I go back home. I'm still me, but everything's back to how it used to be, and then
Okay, how many, you're around a bunch of people who haven't changed. And a lot of them are your age, and you have. These are people who stayed around the hometown, the home neighborhood, and they're still pretty much who they always have been, and you suspect everybody they will be, everything they will be.
so it's like a liminal experience when I get there, and then when I come back, like it's 2 in 1 trip kind of thing.
How many of you have ever had really bizarre ass experiences on a Greyhound bus? Just really whack ass experiences. Rich, tell us. You can't tell us? I know you tripped Burt Bacharach on an airplane once, which counts for something. I once drank a pint and a half of schnapps on a bus between Iowa City to Chicago. Because I was an alcoholic. I mean, that's what we do. No, it was not a good idea at the time, but I was talking very animatedly to this woman, and when I had to change buses in Chicago, I was so plowed I didn't even know where the heck I was going to go. And this woman was buying travel insurance. She was paying money, her own money for travel insurance on a bus. And so I started making this impassioned speech about, this is just the man ripping you off, ma'am. And I'm blah, blah, blah. Next thing I know, I'm draped across the shoulder of some big, huge, burly somebody or other. And he, where are you going? Milwaukee? He puts me on the bus for Milwaukee, which was actually kind of a kindness because I was like so loaded I couldn't even. And so when they dumped me off at the bus station in Milwaukee, I'm still like drunk as a lord and all of that. And my mom and dad say, well, honey, Joe, we've been drinking, so you're going to have to drive. Oh, and by the way, we got a nice cold case of beer for you in the refrigerator. Well, the good news is that 3 days from that, I realized either I stopped drinking or I flunk out of graduate school and my life is worthless. So that must have been September 20th, 1983. So I really did learn from that horrible Thanksgiving experience, which started out with getting drunk as 3 skunks on the bus on 3 bottles of schnapps that I picked up in Davenport, Iowa. And I'm sticking by that. Any other semi-catabatic experiences? Go ahead, Camille.
I have a friend whose mom died when he was little, and then they had a house fire and lost all of the things, so he didn't even have a picture of her anymore. So me and my friend one year decided to go to his hometown where he was born and find a picture of her somehow, like her high school yearbook or etc.
Right, just anything.
So when we're there, it's a pretty small town. We end up running into this woman. We're just going door to door asking people from this yearbook that we found if they have any pictures of her from high school. And there's a woman named Stacy Mackey that we met, and she is the reason why I left my hometown. Just seeing her, never having left, she was just like, oh god, it was awful. It was awful. She just had never gone anywhere with her life, and got married right out of high school and had 5 kids in her house, just sitting there. And she was just gossiping about this thing that happened with this woman that we were looking for 20 years before. Yeah.
No, I remember when I was getting ready to graduate from college and all of that, asking. I didn't really want to go away to graduate school. I was thinking maybe I'll better stay in my comfort zone. You know, stay with my folks for another year, and you know, go just take Latin and Greek classes in Milwaukee. And my professors told me, leave. No, dare to be great. Get out of here. You know. You can't really know what kind of hero you are cut out to be unless you start making the journey. Any other really quick Catabatic stories? The idea is, go ahead, Bethany.
In high school, we were going to an all-district choir competition thing, whatever, and it was a long bus ride through a windy road, and our bus got shot by a deer hunter, and it went through one of the side windows on the bus, and it was pretty ridiculous.
You were driving through the Ozarks, right? No, I don't know. I was just wondering if the theme from Deliverance, sort of bang, 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 bang. Well, you know, just about any kind of really long trip is like a catabasis. I still remember getting off the plane in Rome, Italy, and I'll be damned. I got on the plane, everybody was speaking English. I got off the plane, all of them were speaking Italian, and these taxi drivers all, what are you gonna do? Io sono americano, you know, I was trying out my schoolboy Italian on them. Liminal experience. And I really did feel in certain respects I was walking into hell. I didn't tell you the tire repair store story. And I'm not going to. But my point is that the good thing was, eventually the city that I walked into, where everybody was walking around and talking Italian and stuff like that, turned out to be Rome. And that was pretty dang awesome. But it didn't happen immediately. I did have a close to death experience with the Italian police. I'll tell you that some other time. But I really did. And I was detained by Italian police. And it was so terrified me that I would not go out by myself for 3 weeks because I was that afraid. It was over something completely stupid. I felt so heroic when I actually went out by my own bad self. But my point is that foreign country, any foreign country, leaving your home, going to the hospital, any physical challenge. Anybody here been in the military? Or know somebody who's been in the military? What do they do to you when you join the military? They depersonalize you and make you feel weak, and they rip you down to nothing and they build you up again. Same thing happens when you go to a war. Do we have any moms or dads in this room here? Well, I know you are a dad. You know, Dad, Rich. Nothing's ever the same. It's never the same again.